Thank you very much, Chair Gower. Good discussion, complex issue. I want to confirm a couple things. The first is on the discrepancy between the official plan numbers and the housing target numbers. So I think we have 80,000 in the official plan. We're looking at 150,000 in the housing pledge target. And I believe this is being done due to a legislative obligation to factor the 80,000 from the official plan. I need to understand how we reconcile that difference because we're building our city towards what we anticipate, and those numbers are creeping higher every day. And I just want to make sure that if we're a slave to that document, that it's done so in such a way that we're able to somewhat have some agility to make the right decisions as a council regarding amendments up without getting ourselves into trouble. So if you could maybe just underscore that piece a little bit so that I'm a bit more clear, that would be great.
So, Chair, the housing pledge that Council pledged to last year is an aspirational target established by the province to get as many houses built as possible. Underlying the pledges was also the eligibility for the Building Faster fund. So if municipalities had provided that pledge, they would then be eligible to access that fund, which is meant to provide for some of the offsets that Bill 23 removed for development charges. So that was one of the reasons why Council opted to make the pledge, but also to recognize that the municipality also has a role to play in providing as many houses as possible, notwithstanding what the official plan projections may have. So that is a target that Council made in terms of the pledge. In terms of the development charges and the denominator, so to speak, that staff has mentioned, we do have to use the projections in the official plan.
Okay, but I mean, is there a staff assessment that this leaves us short somehow, or like how are we addressing those different numbers? It's like having two different accounting books for a firm that leads to problems.
So, Chair, I'll try and answer that one. In terms of if the municipality receives more permits than what we have projected, then those DC charges would go towards the projects. So there isn't necessarily a balancing between what's projected in our official plan versus what's been pledged to in the municipal housing pledge.
Okay. One of the delegates spoke to the transitionary period of 3 months, and I just wanted to get kind of staff perspective on that because originally there wasn't one, and I believe in 2019 it was 6 months. I just want to get an appreciation for how we settled on 3 months, and if there is risk that's being assumed by that being too short or not long enough or what have you.
Through the chair, as Tim Mark mentioned earlier, that we agree that there should be a transition period. It was established at 3 months, but it's designed in a slightly different format as the ones that we were used in the past. It doesn't have that, as he said, there was a deadline. There has been a deadline in most of the transition clauses that I'm aware of that you had to apply by a certain date in order to lock in those transition rates. There is no deadline for applying for a building permit, so that the 3-month time frame allows for more flexibility, and you don't have the same deadline to apply within, say, a shorter time frame as I think it was like the end of June or June 28th in 2019. It was different dates in the past. So now there is no criteria that limits that. So you can, after a month or two, you could still apply. And if you get your building permit, you're still subject to the transition provisions. And of course, also mentioned that the changes that came into place with Bill 138 under Section 26.2 that allows for the rates to be frozen under certain circumstances for up to 2 years. Although under Bill 185, it's changing 18 months. But if you have those rates frozen for 2 years, then you wouldn't be subject to the higher rates because you would have locked in at an earlier point in time.
I appreciate that. And if we were to look to consider amendments to that, did I hear correctly that that would need to be submitted today?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, may I just clarify on that? I think it's important. That would be, today is a deadline to consider on the part of staff, right?
Mr. Chair, there may be topics that committee wants staff to explore without yet taking a position on. We would respectfully request that we receive them today. Transition it really is within the committee and council's jurisdiction. It is not required, but it is within your authority to grant. And so a motion on transition would be appropriate today. If that's where the committee's mind is at, it would make it easier with respect to bylaw drafting if it were done today.
It's not a motion I'm going to bring, but if a motion were to come to the floor of council, that would also be in order, I believe.
It will make legal's life more difficult, but we will accommodate you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that council understands that it does have the final say, as always. However, I would certainly encourage anyone who wants to change that transition to bring that motion to this committee today in order to make our staff's life easier, and I would vote against that motion. Sorry, Councillor Hill.
No, I really appreciate that clarification, Chair. I think it's important, and I think that's a part of the frustration, certainly that I'm feeling, in that there's a lot of data that has been changing that we need to come together, and now we're kind of being forced to make a decision with I would call it some less than perfect information in order to try and get the best outcome, and then we have a ticking clock, with no real flexibility to move beyond that. So that's the piece I'm struggling with, is how we can find, whatever may be the best way to make amendments to this, if there are some that can be found, but to do it in such a way that we're procedurally correct. I guess my last question is with regard to projects. One of the delegates mentioned having some projects that perhaps don't belong in this background study and maybe aren't purely designed with regard to growth paying for growth. Does City have any further comment on that?
Chair, the project list is really based on documents that council has already approved. The 2013 master plans, the 2022 master plan for parks and so on. So they're not new, they're not being made up. So every time you approve a master planning document, that becomes the plan that we follow until there's an update to that. So none of the projects on the list have shifted from what you have seen in the past.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, I'm very appreciative of the work that's gone on behind this. That's all for me. Thank you.